Hello and welcome to How to Start Up, a podcast for anyone starting a company. This is a collection of conversations with people who have all successfully started, run and even sold their own companies, sharing not only professional but personal experiences on what we should be doing now, next or never. In this episode we hear from Louise Olsen and Stephen Ormandy, co-founders and creative directors of Dinosaur Designs, the Australian luxury homeware and jewellery studio. Founding their business in 1985, Louise and Stephen began selling their creations at Sydney markets, where they both attended art school. Since then, Dinosaur Designs has grown to become one of Australia's most renowned design studios and has expanded internationally. Louise and Stephen share with us their advice on how they have built an internationally recognisable brand, why growing slower is important for company culture, and why looking after your team is the number one priority when running a successful business. Welcome, Louise and Stephen. It is great to have you on How to Start Up. It would be great to just kick off and ask you to introduce yourselves and a little bit about the business that you started.
I'm Louise Olsen and I'm an artist and designer and creative director, co-founder of Dinosaur Designs.
And I'm Stephen Ormandy, and I'm exactly the same as Louise. Artist, designer, co-founder.
But there's also one other thing, is that one of you is husband and one of you is wife. Am I correct? Or partners?
We are.
Yeah, we're partners. We are
like an old married couple, really. I mean, we have a daughter and we've been together for,
don't do the maths.
Years.
Makes you feel old.
Well, I was going to say, you met at art school.
That's right.
Because of the register, you were sitting next to each other.
That's right. Both names start with us. The classes were alphabetically.
And from that first meeting, how did you get from that initial conversation to founding one of Australia's most iconic brands?
We spent 3 years at art school before we started Dinosaur. So we had a friendship that was already running, and we were already doing our own individual creative practices that were more immediate. I was making jewellery. Louise was making T-shirts and fabrics. Our third partner at the time was actually knitting, doing knits. So we had our own individual things going that were doing fairly well, and we were selling quite a few. I funded my way through art school making jewellery. You know, it was just, we were already doing that. So we came together, I guess, as a little group to go to the markets.
And that was Paddington Markets in Sydney.
Yeah.
So local art market that's still going today and it's thriving.
Indeed.
And I know it's a mecca for people who like to shop, me included. But given that you started fresh out of art school, the three of you, and obviously now you're the two leading the business, that sounds like quite a tumultuous change in the business. Is there any advice that you'd give new founders to when they go into partnership with people, or how to set up a company at the beginning to protect yourselves with things like that?
I think we were quite young and naive. I mean, we were like 20 when we started the business. It started as a lovely friendship, but I think that the toll of what business often takes you through can be very stressful on friendships and relationship. And I think that with all the love and all the joy that you share and friendship that you share in the beginning, really goes through a lot of stresses with different things that happen with a business, and also the consistency of seeing each other every day and working through things. It's quite intense, really. And I think that you have to look at that when you're forming a partnership, that how are going to be, or how our personality is going to handle the rigours of running a business.
But then again, you don't know. And if you spend the whole beginning planning the end, that in itself is such a negative mindset to be a part of.
And until you get going, you don't know.
I guess good advice, lawyers are always good, accountants are always good. They can sort of set up a framework. I think starting a company and making an official company, then you've got all the framework normally within the company set up for all sorts of things that are going to come your way. So there's already a well document in forming a company. A lot of those things are taken care of in the corporate structure, however you go about building that. But yeah, we had a very basic setup, and it lasted 25 years, the three-way partnership, which continues today. Our third partner is still part of the company as a silent investor. So
yeah, she's still a shareholder.
And that's the thing, you don't know what life's going to throw at you. And over the course of life, something I've learned the hard way in 2.5 years, that real life still happens. You can't just work the whole time. You do need to sleep, you do need to eat, you do need to exercise. Stuff happens, your boiler might blow up.
Yes.
Things are going to happen that you can't foresee. So are there any pieces of advice you give people as to planning or process or even that structure structure, like, or keeping your sanity? Anything you've learned potentially the hard way?
Especially talking to other people in business, especially who have been through it, and listen to what they say. Because it's one thing to ask the question, but to really take it on board and try and understand how it's going to affect you.
Yeah. And so find people in similar veins, similar industries that could potentially advise you or mentor you.
Yes. And you could work with, as much as possible, a phone call away, because really business, especially if you're on your own, it's still collaborative. You're still working with people. You have to be. It's the very nature of our world. It's one big collaboration. So it's all about understanding and being good at that.
Yeah, but I think, really reaching out to the right people and sharing experiences and advice is always precious.
And this is what this is today. So thank you, because I know that you're now giving back to so many people with advice. So I very much appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
You've built such an incredible brand, and it's very, very well known in Australia, and it's very well known internationally. How did you ensure that your company grew at a good, steady pace, but without over expanding or stretching yourselves too far into other markets? What was your market approach?
I guess our market approach was to keep it simple, really, in many ways, and to grow with the business. So often people end up throwing a lot of money at their business or getting investors on board. And I think that really growing quite closely with your business so that you're working in your capacity with your manufacturing or your employees, with all different aspects of your business, I think has made a huge difference for us. I mean, we're nearly a 37-year-old company now, but we gradually grew it so that we really built really strong roots in a way. So we see ourselves like a big tree, and that we've got very strong roots so that, say, for instance, going through the pandemic that we've just been through, we were able to navigate our way through that quite safely because we had such good roots and such a good business structure with our stores and with our online business that we were able to handle the rigors of that quite well.
Oh, congratulations, because that's by no means a small matter. I think that grows slow.
It was very difficult. The Australian government were very supportive as well, and I know the British government as well was quite supportive, but it's not great for retail workers. It was terrible. But we managed to swing everyone into our studio, and all our key staff in Sydney were packing boxes because the internet just blew up. And for us, if we couldn't work from home, you could go to work. That was Australia's rules.
Yeah, so all our retail staff, because we manufacture in Sydney, they were all able to come into our factory and work in the business.
And you've come back even stronger, which is amazing.
Exactly. And because the company was trading quite well, there was no excuse to let people go.
I mean, the shift to online was incredible. What we were losing in the stores was just shifting straight to online. So I think it really educated a lot of people, a lot of Australians who haven't been strong online shoppers, to shop and discover online.
And I think what you were saying is behaving honourably as well, because there were so many businesses that were trying to get around the rules of furloughing people, but they were still working, and people were trying to rinse the system. And it's like, no, those days are gone. Have you had real core values within your business that you had from day one that still stand true today? Or how have you built your company culture?
I think we built it around family and looking after people. If you look after us, we look after you. And we've had employees that have been with us for a long, long, long time. And we're both very proud of that. So I think we're very fair the way we look after people. And it stays with us. I think it runs from customer care to care for your employees. We're colleagues. We're all working together.
We're a team.
Louise and I don't see, although everyone calls us the boss, we've never really thought of ourselves as the boss as such and put on boss boots and walked around being all bossy. It's just not our thing. It's just not who we are.
Good definition. If you're not bossy, does that really mean you're not the boss?
We're colleagues, exactly.
I know. Well, they keep wanting to make you the boss because sometimes it suits that. It suits their agenda. So, all right, I'll be the boss just for you.
But given that you are also family, and you said earlier you had a daughter, how do you compartmentalize home and work life balance? Is there a balance?
We don't really worry about it. If we need to talk, we talk about whatever. Yeah. There's no rules. Now and again, we can ask the other, look, I really don't want to think about that today. But it's very rare. We just talk it through, and it doesn't last that long. It's not the whole evening's conversation, but sometimes if it's being talked about at home, it's really important. And it's actually a great asset. It's a power.
That is a way of life, I think, because we're artists and designers, and I think that we love talking about design and we love talking about art and things that we're doing. I mean, sometimes with business issues, sometimes can be more stressful, but also is quite pleasurable too. It's all those things. I mean, when we were sort of working with our third partner, there was more pressure around us. And we kind of started to have a rule where let's not talk about business when we go home, but inevitably it always creeps back in.
It's very hard, I find. Someone said when I started, you're going to think about your clients in the shower, when you go for a run, you're never going to not think about them. But as long as it's not a sort of stress. And I guess, is there any advice that you'd have, given you have survived the pandemic, how do you manage stress in the business? Do you have any hacks around that?
I go surfing.
Surfing is really great. I think going for a beautiful walk.
We're lucky we live in a city that has those opportunities to their doorstep.
Yeah, you both love the walk.
Which London has too, isn't it? You've got those beautiful parks and walks. And
Can't surf the Thames, unfortunately.
No, you can't.
You haven't got the blue that we get, I must admit.
And the bright sunlight, I think, always helps. If you can go for a walk around the block, actually, I mean, London's autumn this year has been amazing, but I find everyone said just go for a walk around the block. It's the easiest thing to do, but do you ever do it? No. Little things like that, I think, if knowing how you tick. And then you've really built the business and emerged into new product categories, but really incredibly retained that brand identity. How did you do that? Was it grow slow or really sort of think through designs or go with a gut feeling? How did you enter those product categories?
I think that there's a certain DNA with Dinosaur Designs that we work with. I think that when you see a Dinosaur Designs piece, it has a certain feel and look about it, and we're very inspired by nature and art, and I think that we also love that juxtaposition, which I think has been a real identity for Dinosaur Designs, is that we work with a relatively modern material, resins, but we try and work with it in a very hand-felt way. And everything is handmade in our studio in Redfern. It's all, and I think that's what sets us apart from other brands in the homewares industry or in the jewellery industry.
So it doesn't matter what product it is, jewellery, homeware, it's always made in Redfern and it's handmade.
Yes. Yeah, it's all handmade.
It's so tactile. You want to touch it.
Yes, exactly. And we love that. And it's got a nice sense of colour and you can tell that sort of hand-felt quality. There's something really warm as human beings about something that you can touch and feel, and particularly when you're wearing it close to your body or even when you're taking it home. There's something about that that's really warm and natural to us, I think, as human beings.
And are there any categories you've branched into you've gone, no, that's a terrible idea?
Yes, candlesticks.
Really? How come?
Well, someone nearly burnt their house down with them because they burnt the stick into the... Louise hates this stuff. Someone burnt the stick and then it caught on fire and their table caught on fire. It's not our fault, but inevitably it's our fault in their mind. So we thought we'll stop doing candlesticks.
Yeah.
But we still do a brass one. We do a brass one now.
Oh, resin, of course. We don't do resin.
We don't do a resin one, but in resin, we don't do Dinosaur Designs ones because people love to put a candle in, the resin and very glowing and lovely, but it's
really
just not the right material.
Buyer beware.
For a flame.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all know that being a sustainable business is the right thing to do, especially post-pandemic. We've seen B Corp do more and more publicity around what they're achieving and how many more businesses are becoming B Corp. And there's many other certificates you can go after as a business to sort of mark your stamp of approval when you think about being sustainable. But are there things that you've done over the years that have made sure you live up to that? How important is that to you to be a sustainable business?
I think it's at the base of everything we do. We tend to think about how what we do affects across the planet as well as our backyard. And we've got a few initiatives, but the fundamental nature of resin is it's actually an original byproduct of the petrochemical industry because it's a very particular type of material, different to most plastics. It actually was going to landfill for petrol manufacturers that basically that landfill product was turned into resin. So it's one of the...
So it's a waste. We're working with a waste material.
A waste material, which has been then developed into a very sophisticated and probably drives its own industry now. But it uses up, because you take oil and you have petrol, they look very different. And what is stripped out becomes resin.
So that really, even the core material you use has set you on that trajectory.
Yeah. Was originally a waste. So it's a waste that we hope to turn into something that people value and treasure as an object.
Waste not, want not.
Yes, exactly.
Plus, again, how we package, how we pack. We're always looking at different ways, how we manufacture, why we manufacture, how much we manufacture. That's all part of our process as well. We're very slow at growth, and we plan at doing that because we just want our impacts to be controlled as we go.
I was going to say, given that you are established and your business is obviously clearly very successful, you could just sit back and go, oh no, we're fine, we don't need to change. But are you constantly championing change and empowering your teams to look for new alternatives?
Absolutely.
Definitely. I think that with any environment initiative, it's a constant work in progress. There's always room for more and more and more improvement. And then we always look at that as a business.
Especially with packaging and shipping, I know that's key.
Yeah, and it's across the board. It's in design, it's in your thought process. We're students, and we continue to be students. Yeah. We don't assume we know everything, and there's always something you can learn. So it's a student mentality that I think is really important to keep in life, that interest.
So you're hanging on to your 85 mentality of learning.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly, of being interested.
But how do you keep it? I mean, I'm only 2.5 years in, so I'm still on that adrenaline-fueled learning curve of, oh my good God, I have no idea what's next. How, given that you have built this business and are building still, how do you keep innovating and how do you find your inspiration today?
I guess there's one thing that underlines that is the business has been successful. So that gives you a natural dynamism to keep going because it is successful, and you think, well, I can actually indulge myself in this area now because we couldn't do that before because we didn't think there's anything in it. It was too risky. Now we can have a go, and it turns out, oh, that does work. Oh, that's interesting.
But I also think that idea of it, sometimes it can be a bit of a pressure worrying about having the next idea and so forth. I think it's so often when you start making and creating, that often takes care of itself.
Yeah, true.
One idea leads to another idea.
And I think for me, I had this thought just this morning of, goodness, when you solve one problem, you just let another one come to the top of the list, and there's never going to be a list empty. It's like, get through this, solve that, then the next one bubbles up. But actually you flip it into the positive of like, well, we can do this, and then once that's done, we can do that. And it's having that energy around it.
That's right.
You've done some beautiful collaborations. What has been your favourite or your most successful, or both potentially?
Oh, gosh, there's been so many over the years. I mean, it was lovely doing the chess set for Louis Vuitton.
I think the rugs, working with designer rugs in Australia has been great.
Designer rugs, doing some of the fashion shows that we've collaborated with different designers.
Yeah, the Romance Was Born show was a highlight.
Yeah, and Caroline Herrera, and doing bangles for her and the collections. And we've just done one with Oscar de la Renta with some bangles, and just different, just lovely collaborations. And I think that's what's so lovely about being in the design industry, is that you have these opportunities to share ideas and collaborate. It's really exciting.
And is there a way that you go, okay, this will be great for the business, or is it gut feeling, or your heart tells you, okay, I really want to work with that person? How do you make those business decisions?
I think they approach us, I think.
Yeah, so often they've approached us because we've got...
Well, who have you said no to?
We're unlikely to approach people because we're doing our own thing. Most of the collaborations have been presented to us, I must admit. We're very shy like that.
I love that.
We've got so much going on within the business. And this is what's so lovely about having a business, is that things come to you. Start putting things out there, but there's this wonderful kind of ripple of things coming back at you too that you can start sort of playing with. And that's what's so exciting about having a business, is you're out there, but it's amazing what comes to you when you start.
And I feel like I've had 20 years of being expected to be in an office on Bond Street for a brand, and you turn up and you do the job description. And now I feel very boundaryless, which is really exciting in some ways, and you can feel very vulnerable in others. But it's the sky's the limit, and it's trying to rein in that adrenaline a little bit. Do you have things where you cut off your day and go, right, now is the end of my day and I'm going to go for my walk by the ocean? Do you have to force yourself to stop sometimes?
I think it's lovely to think about it. It's not a chore or a difficult thing, that, even the difficulties, it's a way of life. It's okay. You can kind of take it in your stride. And sometimes you going through those walks, it helps you think even more clear. And sometimes not rushing decisions can be really good.
Or even sometimes not making a decision. That can also be just as powerful, because we always feel we have to decide. Sometimes you don't.
Oh gosh, that's so freeing, because I'm very OCD and I'm like, I must just tick it off the list. And actually sometimes if you let it percolate.
Make a decision. You've got to let it drift. And that's the great luxury of, because you're caught in a can-do, solve it, move on. But when you run your own business, no, some things can drift, and some things just, they eventually tell you what to do rather than make a decision. It just becomes obvious.
If you could go back and have all of your time over again, is there anything you wouldn't do?
Every time something difficult happens, it's a credible opportunity to learn. And when I get that question, I think when there are problems, they're actually the best things that can happen to you, because you learn so much from them. As difficult as it may seem.
Embrace failure.
Yeah, grace failure, definitely, because there's incredible opportunity in that, in those failures, to learn wonderful things.
Making a mistake for the third time, now then you're an idiot. Because the second time was checking.
Yes. Thank you. I am in that at the moment. The second time I'm going through something very painful, I'm like, this is never going to happen again. Yeah. I checked it.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen again.
Yeah, that's what you need to make sure.
What is the last golden nugget piece of advice you'd like to offer someone who's thinking about starting their own business?
Well, if you're serious about it, keep turning up.
Yes.
Because the day you don't turn up is the day the business ends.
Yeah. Be determined. And there's also a wonderful saying, which I think sometimes when we've gone through difficult things and they have to make difficult decisions, there's a wonderful line I always love to go to, which is, man cannot discover new ocean unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore.
Oh, yes.
It's always a good one, that every now and then when you have to make those decisions, you don't know what's going to happen, but you just have to have the courage and the faith just to leap in.
It's that huge leap of leaving your security behind, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, when we first opened our first store in New York, 9/11 just happened, and we'd signed this lease, and it was just looking like, oh my God, what have we done? Disaster. But we still just kept going.
Was a
kept
disaster,
ploughing on, and it all worked out fantastically well in the end. It really had to have nerves of steel at that time.
Yeah, of course. And is there one question you'd potentially like to ask our next guest?
We have a business that now has, 120 people. And I think that one of the difficult things about running a business with a lot of people is keeping everybody happy. How to keep that community and keep it engaged, and how to keep people stimulated. I think that is one of the most challenging things about having a business.
How to keep that community engaged, yeah. And such a responsibility too, but such an exciting one when it works. Yeah, it's my favourite bit of the job, I think, is the people who are in our team. So yeah, I hear you there.
Exactly.
My daily job is to look after them, and then clients, and then the rest of it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stephen, Louise. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, absolute pleasure.
Oh, pleasure. Absolutely pleasure.
If you'd like to contact Louise or Stephen, you can find all of their details in the show notes, along with a recap of the advice that they have so kindly shared. Thank you for listening to How to Start Up. I hope these conversations offer you some confidence, encouragement, and reassurance that you're on the right track. If you enjoy this podcast, I'd be so appreciative if you were to rate, review, and subscribe, as it will really help other people starting a company discover it.